Chapter 2 Lost in a Book. With a cry of delight, Belle ran into the center of the room, put her mop and bucket down, and turned around in a wide circle, her face full of wonder. It seemed to her that every book ever written was here. There were novels and plays, love poems, legends, and folk tales, volumes of philosophy, history, science, mathematics. Earlier that morning, when she'd first opened her eyes, she was afraid she'd only dreamed the library and the treasures it contained. But no, it was real. It was here, she was here. Oh my goodness, the teapot said, her voice faltering. I know, Mrs. Potts. Isn't it amazing? Belle exclaimed. Mon Dieu, said the feather duster, her tone dire. I've never seen such a wonderful, incredible, astonishing place, Belle finished. I agree, Plumette. Books were Belle's favorite things in the world. She devoured them. Villeneuve, her village, had a library technically, but really it was just a half shelf in Pierre Robert's church. She'd read every book on it twice, but this library had so many books she could never read them all, not if she lived to be 1,000. As she continued to look around, her eyes fell on the library's grand marble fireplace. She imagined herself sitting by it with a pot of tea and books stacked up all around her. Where will I start? She wondered aloud. With the Greek epics? The classical tragedies? Might I suggest the windows? Lumiere said, hurrying by her, with rags draped over his arm. Belle smiled sheepishly. His words brought her back down to earth. The windows were tall and graceful, but they were gray with grime. The draperies that framed them were in tatters. Cobwebs hung from the sills. She rolled up her sleeves, picked up her mop and bucket, and started toward them. As she did, the fringed footstool raced past her, stirring up a cloud of dust. The little teacup was riding on its back. Faster, Frou-Frou, faster, he shouted in his little boy voice. Chip, that's enough. You're making this worse, Mrs. Potts scolded. How on earth does the master work in here? She added, poking her spout into a corner. A thick layer of dust carpeted much of the library's floor. It coated the large gilt table near the doorway, the chairs, the mantel. Cogsworth ran a finger over a baseboard, inspected it, and paled. Dust. No one said anything about dust. I have delicate innards, he fretted, patting his casing. Screws, pots, gears, one little speck into the works, and everything grids to a halt. Lumiere wrinkled his nose. That is so much more than we needed to know. I'll supervise, shall I? Offered Cogsworth. To me, dust is a 4-letter word. Dust is a 4-letter word to everyone, said Lumiere. Work is also a 4-letter word, said Plumette, under her breath. Perhaps that is why Monsieur strives to avoid it. I heard that, mademoiselle, he thundered. Plumette shook her feathers and flounced off to clean a chair. Lumiere put an arm around a fuming Cogsworth. Old friend, I know the library's in a terrible state, and I know the task ahead seems impossible, but all we need to do is begin. The rest will take care of itself. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Quite right, Cogsworth declared. Barreling for the door, I say we journey back to the kitchen, find a nice cozy seat by the fire, and rethink the whole business. But Lumiere intercepted him. He hooked his arm through Cogsworth's and turned him around. Belle can't do this all alone. She needs our help, he said. The library makes her happy, and we want her to be happy. Cogsworth sighed. My springs will never be the same. Belle, overhearing their exchange, felt a stab of guilt. The servants had volunteered to help her at breakfast, but they hadn't known what they were getting into. While the library hadn't fallen to the same level of despair as the rest of the castle, it was still in need of a deep cleaning, one that Cogsworth didn't seem to be up to. His gears often got stuck, and he frequently threw out his pendulum. Worried, Belle hurried over to the 2 servants and knelt down. Let me find a picture here. Lumiere, Cogsworth, she said anxiously. I can manage on my own. You have other things to do. Cogsworth, who was already launching into another round of griping, had the good grace to look abashed. He quickly tried to make amends. Would it make you happy, my dear? He asked, having the use of this place. Belle nodded. Very, she said. As happy as you were in your village? He asked hopefully. My village? Belle echoed, flustered by the question. She sat down on the floor. Well, I wasn't. How could she tell them the truth? It was hard enough to admit it to herself. What's the matter, child? Cogsworth asked. Mrs. Potts heard him. Is something wrong? She asked, hurrying over. Plummet followed her, feathers rustling. Even Chip and Frou-Frou stopped what they were doing and drew close to Belle. Belle thought about making up an innocent fib or laughingly brushing aside their concern, but when she saw the worry in their eyes, genuine and deep, she knew she could do neither. The truth is, I wasn't happy in my village, she exclaimed. Not really. I was happy in my home, of course, with my father. Sorry, just trying to find where I left off. But that was the only place I felt I belonged there, and in the pages of the books I read. Why, Belle? Mrs. Potts asked. Belle took a deep breath. It was a small place. And the people, well, many of them had small hopes and small dreams. It was hard to find a friend there. There were so few people who understood me. My father did, of course, and Pierre Robert, the clergyman, with all of the books, and Agatha, a beggar woman. Everyone else thought I was odd, she admitted, blushing a little. You are odd, Belle, Chip piped up. But we don't mind, everyone laughed, even Belle. Only Mrs. Potts didn't. Instead, she raised a painted eyebrow. But Mama, she is, Chip insisted. She wears boots with a dress, she reads Latin, and rides her horse like a bandit. Chip, Mrs. Potts cautioned. It's not a bad thing, Mama. We're not exactly normal, you know. I'm a talking teacup. A wisp of steam rose from Mrs. Potts' spout. It's all right, Mrs. Potts, Belle said. I suppose to people of Villeneuve I was odd, because I wanted to leave. I wanted to travel and see something of the world. She smiled ruefully. And because I liked books more than I liked Gaston. Gaston, Lumiere echoed, a puzzled expression on his golden face. The village show-off, Belle replied, shaking her head at the memory of the handsome, preening braggart who had practically demanded that she marry him, then nearly fallen over backward when she had said no. Reading became my sanctuary, Belle continued. I found so much in those books. I found histories that inspired me, poems that delighted me, novels that challenged me. Belle paused suddenly, self-conscious. She looked down at her hands and in a wistful voice said, "What I really found, though, was myself." Cogsworth, so full of complaints, only moments ago stepped forward and took Belle's hand. "And you will find yourself again in this library." "If I have anything to say about it," he declared, thrusting his chest out. Belle looked up at him, surprised by the fever in his voice. "You have awoken this old soldier's martial spirit. We shall take back the library from the spiders and the mice. Once more unto the breach, dear friends. Never let it be said that Colonel Cogsworth of the 4th Hussars backed down from a fight." He swiped a rag from the half-dozen of so draped over Lumiere's arm and marched off, head held high, to do battle with the filthy windows. "Colonel, is it now?" Lumiere remarked. "Last week it was Captain." "And the week before, Lieutenant. He'll promote himself to Brigadier General before long." He turned to Plumette. "Shall we, chérie?" Plumette gave him a flirtatious smile. And together they attacked the dark corners with Lumiere shining his candle light over them and Plumette sweeping them clean. Mrs. Potts joined Cogsworth at the windows. As she blew steam on the pans, Cogsworth rubbed the dirt away, his small brass arms working furiously. Even Frou-Frou and Chip helped. At Chip's request, Cogsworth tied rags to the footstool's 4 feet, and the two raced off again, dusting the floorboards as they carried around the room. Careened around the room. As Belle watched them all, a lump rose in her throat. They were so good to her, so kind. They wanted to help her, to make her happy, to be her friends. And then there was the beast. A storm of conflicting emotions swept through her as she thought of him. He was the reason she was a captive in this dark, remote castle. He was also the reason she was standing in this incredible library. The beast wasn't like the others. Mrs. Potts, Lumiere, Plumette. They were warm and funny, cheerful, boisterous. He was difficult, gruff, enigmatic, reclusive, and yet, in his own strange way, he wanted to make her happy too. He'd proven that last night. When Belle thought of what he'd done, it was unbelievable, impossible. Even now it made her heart race. Anyone else would have allowed her a glimpse of his collection, loaned her a precise book or two, or a precise book or two, but the beast Belle was learning was not anyone else. She dunked her mop in her bucket now, squeezing it out, and started to clean in earnest. Unlike the beast, she couldn't read, work, or do much of anything in the midst of a mess. Belle didn't care if she finished at midnight. She didn't care if her muscles ached, her back groaned, her legs wobbled from running up and down the stairs with buckets of water. She thought only about the happiness that awaited her once she finished her task. For last night, the beast had given her an unexpected present, a gift more valuable to her than his castle and all his lands, more precious than jewels or gold. Last night, the beast had given her his books. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And this is Charlotte, like Charlotte's Web, Chapter 2 of Lost in a Book. Put any likes or subscribes or comments you may have, and have a great day. Bye.